Aldi's food may be affordable, but watch out for their frozen aisle. Some recalled items give new meaning to the phrase, "I'm so hungry, I could eat a horse."
I had some Taquitos! Taquitos!
It was a tough break for taquito lovers who bought their favorite little snacks from Aldi at the start of 2025, being that the chain had to recall their frozen Casa, Mamita chicken and cheese taquitos only partway through January. Why? Because there were pieces of metal inside. They were pulled from shelves in 31 states, but Aldi wasn't able to catch the production error until after customers started complaining. And if fielding those complaints wasn't bad enough, the USDA's Food Safety Inspection Service had to get involved after it received a report that a consumer sustained a dental injury after eating a metal-laced taquito. The initial recall affected roughly 24,870 pounds of product. Anyone with a 20-ounce package of the taquitos will want to make sure they don't have an expiration date between July 3rd and September 25th, 2025. Aldi issued the recall in response to another taquito recall by their supplier, Best Way Sandwiches, Inc., several days earlier. This isn't the first time Aldi's chicken taquitos have posed a threat to consumers. In August 2020, a public health alert was issued for Casa Mamita taquitos and Great Value and Jose Ole frozen taquitos and chimichangas. Aldi shoppers craving some waffles were left out in the cold in October 2024 thanks to a huge, and we mean huge, recall. Due to potential Listeria monocytogenes contamination, Aldi recalled a single lot code of all 6 flavors of its breakfast best homestyle waffles and its buttermilk pancakes. And if that sounds like a lot, we're just getting started. Lots of major stores were affected by the listeriosis scare brought on by supplier Treehouse Food Inc. The likes of Walmart, Target, Dollar General, and many more had to pull literal tons of frozen waffles off shelves. Major waffle producer Kodiak took a particularly large hit, recalling 8 of the frozen waffle varieties it sells. A few days after the initial recall, tests performed at Treehouse's Brantford, Ontario plant caused them to expand the recall. Before long, supermarket chains like Whole Foods, Kroger, and Trader Joe's were all sweeping waffles from their freezers. Despite the vast number of products recalled, no one is known to have gotten sick from Treehouse's Listeria contamination. Even so, over 40 frozen waffle and pancake brands were possibly contaminated, and nearly 10 million cases were recalled. With all this bad press for their competition, the phrase "Lego my ego" has never felt more apt. In March 2023, Aldi encountered a serious problem with a certain frozen fruit. After 5 people got sick from eating organic frozen strawberries in Washington state, the FDA and Centers for Disease Control and Prevention were on the case. Compared to processed foods with multiple ingredients, both fresh and frozen fruit generally has a simpler path to distribution in stores. But just because it's more straightforward to get them on shelves doesn't mean fruit quality control is flawless, and big fruit recalls happen often. In this case, the strawberries were responsible for hepatitis A outbreak that prompted the chain to recall large quantities of frozen Simply Nature organic strawberries from select stores in 12 states. The grocer's strawberry supplier was Gresham, Oregon's Scenic Fruit Company, LLC. Costco and Trader Joe's also recalled frozen strawberries, both on their own and in fruit blends. In total, 325,692 pounds of strawberries were pulled from shelves.
That's a lot.
The source of the outbreak was ultimately determined to be farms in Baja California, Mexico, after investigators matched the hepatitis A strain to a strain that caused another outbreak the year before. In both cases, the contaminated strawberries came from the same area. You might think any product you buy with the brand name Earth-Grown Vegan would probably be a safe bet for contamination-free snacking. But veggie-based products are just as susceptible to bacteria as anything. On October 7, 2022, Aldi supplier Cuisine Innovations Unlimited LLC recalled 2 varieties of Aldi's Earth-Grown Vegan Falafel. Both the traditional frozen falafel and the garlic and herb flavor were suspected to be contaminated with Shiga toxin-producing E. coli. Although that bacteria is usually associated with undercooked beef, it can also be present in water and raw vegetables, especially when they're grown in manured gardens. The high-risk falafel was sold in Aldi's across 37 states and Washington, D.C., with a whopping 19 lot numbers getting recalled. By that point, it was too late. The product was shipped to Aldi locations as early as June 2021. Between July 4th and September 19th, 2022, 20 people in 6 states had already gotten sick, and 5 even needed to be hospitalized. Since the recall, Aldi continues to sell multiple frozen meatless products under the Earth-Grown Vegan label. But it looks like they've stopped selling that falafel.
Can't imagine why.
So, frozen falafel fans will need to get their fix from somewhere else for now. We all like our chicken strips crispy, but not break your tooth on metal crispy. Unfortunately, in March 2019, the USDA recalled over 69,000 pounds of frozen chicken strips, including 2 types of Aldi's Kirkwood chicken strips, because they contained pieces of metal. Poultry king Tyson Foods Inc. was responsible for the contamination, and much of the frozen chicken industry felt the effects. Aldi was one of many brands that had its frozen crispy chicken strips pulled from stores alongside Tyson's own. Leading up to the March recall, the Food Safety Inspection Service was made aware of 2 people who had found metal fragments inside their chicken strips. Just weeks after the initial recall, Tyson expanded the recall to include more than 11 million more pounds of chicken. The reason for this enormous expansion was that Tyson decided to recall chicken strips destined to reach stores not just in the States, but in the U.S. Virgin Islands, St. Martin, Bermuda, and Hong Kong as well. 11.8 million pounds of chicken were ultimately pulled from shelves. In that time, several more people found metal in their chicken, and 3 people were injured as a result. In the aftermath, Tyson discontinued certain equipment they thought was associated with the metal pieces. According to Time, a rep for Tyson also said the company would be upgrading its existing metal detection system in favor of X-ray metal detectors. In January 2018, 3 of Aldi's Sunday Shop ice cream products were noticeably absent from freezers. Orange cream bars, raspberry cream bars, and ice cream bars were all shuttered away from consumers due to potential Listeria monocytogenes contamination. The recall came about after routine testing in Fieldbrook Foods' Dunkirk, New York plant uncovered Listeria bacteria in some of the finished product samples. The recall was initially issued in January, and Aldi's name wasn't even mentioned. Instead, orange cream bars sold by the Tops brand, Meyer, were the only items affected. 4 days later, Aldi's luck ran out. While the exact production line that caused the outbreak was found, the recall expanded to chocolate-coated vanilla ice cream bars produced by many more brands, including Aldi. And while the recall was specific to the vanilla ice cream bars, other flavors also had to be recalled because they were sold in variety packs with the contaminated flavor. Fieldbrook Foods suspended production on the line where the Listeria was found while they tried to remedy the situation. Hundreds of thousands of cases were ultimately recalled as a result.
You said you were going to get fresh ones.
Atrocities?
Peas, they come in little pods. You were going to shell them.
Frozen peas, great for cooking and icing a black eye. Aldi shoppers in several states had to go without this kitchen staple after a massive recall in April 2017. This time around, the season's choice garden fresh sweet peas were produced by Lakeside Foods Inc. in Manitowoc, Wisconsin. The recall came about after health officials in Florida found Listeria monocytogenes in samples of the product. No other Lakeside Foods products were affected by the recall, and they ceased the production of the sweet peas after Listeria was found. The recall applied to 9 lot codes of product, which were distributed to Aldi stores in Florida, Iowa, Illinois, Kentucky, Michigan, Ohio, Wisconsin, and West Virginia. The FDA called it a Class 2 recall, which meant getting exposed to the contaminated peas was unlikely to cause lasting harm. This seems appropriate, as there were no reports that anyone got sick. Even so, Aldi and Lakeside Foods' precautionary measures definitely kept some customers from accessing the sweet green pellets. Thousands of cases of Season's Choice peas were removed from stores. In total, 1,339,392 pounds were recalled. Aldi's pre-packaged frozen dinners are one of their many claims to fame, but one was almost the cause of disaster. In March 2017, they recalled their Fusia-branded Szechuan Stir Fry for possible Listeria contamination. After a sample of the stir fry tested positive for Listeria monocytogenes in Florida, the FDA stepped in to investigate. Until the source of the contamination was found, Aldi supplier Versa Marketing Inc. halted production and the recall was issued. Luckily, no illness was linked to Aldi's recall, but consumers who had the frozen stir fry in their freezers were urged to throw it away. In total, a single lot code of Fusia Szechuan Stir Fry was recalled due to the outbreak, adding up to 4,089 cases of stir fry. In late April 2016, the CDC informed the public that a listeriosis outbreak was taking hold across North America, and frozen vegetables and fruit were to blame. Days earlier, CRF Frozen Foods recalled 15 frozen vegetable products. An investigation regarding the outbreak had been going on for several years before whole genome sequencing finally traced it back to CRF. Up to that point, Aldi's frozen produce was unaffected. But 9 people had been infected and hospitalized because of the outbreak. Of those 9, 3 people died. CRF expanded the recall on May 2, 2016 to include all fruit and vegetables manufactured in its Pasco, Washington plant. That's where Aldi comes in. The grocer had to recall bags of Season's Choice frozen sweet peas, frozen sweet corn, and steamable mixed vegetables. The potentially contaminated products were reportedly sold all over the country and in Canada. Listeria monocytogenes poses a unique threat to frozen foods because it thrives in cold temperatures. The Season's Choice vegetables were just 3 out of over 350 products sold by dozens of brands that may have been affected. In the end, CRF recalled 164,288,373 pounds of frozen produce. Feeling hoarse? Well, that's nothing compared to how speechless Aldi shoppers must have been in 2013. That year, fans of Aldi's frozen beef lasagna and spaghetti bolognese got some pretty unexpected meat in their entrees. While food is often recalled for undeclared ingredients, this case was a different animal entirely.
Literally.
Frozen Italian meals sold by European Aldi locations contained horse meat. In addition to Aldi, European retailers like Tesco and Lidl were recalling frozen beef burgers by the millions after Irish health authorities found horse meat in patties labeled 100% beef. Aldi ultimately recalled frozen pasta dishes that contained up to 100% horse meat. In the investigation that followed, they pointed their finger at frozen food manufacturer Findus. In turn, Findus blamed its meat supplier, the French food brand Callaghan. Callaghan then claimed that its supplier, Spanghero, was purchasing horse meat from Romania and fraudulently labeling it as beef.
Why did you even rope me into this? Because he roped me into this! Well, him over there, he roped me into this!
When Romania outlawed horse-pulled street vehicles in the mid-2000s, slaughtering the horses and exporting the meat cheaply throughout Europe became a common practice. In 2019, Spanghero's former director served 4 months in jail for fraud and was banned from the commercial meat industry for 2 years. Aldi couldn't escape the salmonella outbreak that rocked America's food industry in early 2009. On January 31st, 3 Sunday Shop ice cream cone varieties were recalled due to potential salmonella contamination. Aldi's recall was part of 2 larger recalls initiated by suppliers Ice Cream Specialties and Fieldbrook Foods Corporation. In addition, thousands of other brands were forced to recall products connected to an enormous outbreak involving the peanut and peanut butter wholesaler Peanut Corporation of America. More than 700 people got sick and 9 deaths were attributed to the outbreak. Even worse, PCA's then CEO, Stuart Parnell, knew the company's peanut products were contaminated and shipped them anyway.
They were operating outside industry norms, and they willfully released product that was contaminated.
Ice Cream Specialties recalled all ice creams containing peanuts produced in its Indiana plant, including 3 lot codes of Sunday Shop cones intended for sale at Aldi stores. Fieldbrook Foods did the same at their Dunkirk plant. Sunday Shop was one of 25 brands named in Ice Cream Specialties recall, while Fieldbrook Foods recalled 44 brands. In 2015, Parnell was sentenced to 28 years in prison for his role in PCA's deadly cover-up. It was the longest sentence ever given in a food recall case. His brother Michael was sentenced to 20 years. Back in February 2001, Tyson was responsible for another major frozen chicken recall that was felt throughout the frozen food industry. Among the 10 brands that were affected, Aldi's Kirkwood breaded chicken Southern style and breast fillets had to be recalled. The reason for the recall was that pieces of chicken at Tyson's Chicken Quick plant in Rogers, Arkansas, were folded or overlapping during processing. This meant there were pieces of chicken that weren't cooked thoroughly, despite their packaging stating they were fully pre-cooked. The USDA pulled Tyson's chicken and labeled it a high-risk Class 1 recall due to the incomplete processing. All told, 2,300,000 pounds of chicken were pulled from shelves.